Hello, and welcome to another episode of Empower Hour for Changemakers. So, Changemakers, we are in for a wonderful event today. We have Debra Christmas live with us today. Debra Christmas is a seasoned leader in the high tech field. Her 40 plus year career has encompassed sales, consulting, supporting channels, and managing all aspects of information technology. Debra is a senior executive partner with Gartner, working with executives on executing their strategies, developing their teams, and making technology investments decisions with personal leadership development. And Deborah is also a member of Women in Biz Network, a friend and mentor to me, and I'm so thrilled and honored to have her here. Deborah is a change maker who has been supporting women in technology. And Deborah, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your books and your community, your advocacy?
Thank you, Lee, and so wonderful to do this with you. And gosh, I can remember the day that I met you many, many years ago when you did your big conference in April in a snowstorm. I remember it so well.
Yes.
It was a snowstorm, and I wasn't going to leave my house. And I kept something was drawing me there, and I didn't know you then. So I remember that day very, very well. And so, as you've said, I've been in this field. It's 45 years this year, which I can't believe. 45 years in the tech field, and still having a good time. I'm still having a good time, and I will. People have been asking me lately, "Are you going to retire?" No, I plan on celebrating 50 years in technology in the corporate world, which so that's 5 years. Working in this venue, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll write more books and do some consulting and training and coaching and all that kind of stuff. But who retires anymore? Very, very few people. I need to keep my brain active, and I do that. One of the ways I do that is not only the work that I get to do with Gartner as an executive partner and working with senior executives as they make their journey in running and managing and leading IT organizations. I also do it with writing, as you know. And Kelly Irwin and I, my co-author, we released Please Stay, How Women in Tech Survive and Thrive in October of 2020. And that book came out of, believe it or not, this is what shows you the power of connecting women. When I joined Gartner, and that's 8 years ago now, repeatedly, people said, you need to meet Kelly Irwin. You need to meet Kelly Irwin. This kept coming up. Who's Kelly Irwin? Like people just, I guess as I was talking about things, that kept coming up. And one of my Gartner colleagues, Rob Dreyer, I'll be eternally grateful to Rob, at our Gartner Symposium, one of our big events. We house a Canadian sort of, dinner for our Canadian clients. So we're at a restaurant, when you have an event like that, you close off an area for sort of a private dinner. And Rob literally brought Kelly to me. He brought her and said, come with me. I am going to make this introduction, which he did. This is like 5 o'clock, 5:30. And we looked up about 11 o'clock and the restaurant was empty. Just the wait staff. And we were like, oh, you're waiting to go home. Okay, we're out of here. And I'm sure people said goodbye to us and stuff like that. But the two of us kind of honed in. Kelly made sure we were getting snacks. So she was stopping people as they were coming around with their tray, their hors d'oeuvres and things. And both of us talked about wanting to write this book. And she pinged me. So that would have been October 2018. I think it was January, early, just after the Christmas holiday. She goes, are you serious about this? I said, deadly serious. And that's what started our writing process. Two complete strangers who came together around a shared passion for women in technology. And we released Please Stay in October 2020. And it was really the challenge that for us, the reason we wrote this book was women are leaving the field, which we'll talk about, you and I, today. It's startling the numbers in which they're leaving the field. And so we really wanted to, the original book name that I said to Kelly, we should just call it Please Don't Go. Kelly said, let's be a little bit more positive. Let's call it Please Stay. And so we did that. But here's the interesting part. When we went out to our social media platforms to just get some feedback, like crowdsourcing the secondary title, which was, how women in tech survive and thrive, we heard from hundreds of women around the world. I don't even know, I'm not quite sure I know how all this stuff works, because people were reaching out from Dubai, Finland, all over the world saying, can you write about our industry? Like manufacturing, research, higher education, automotive. We're like, no, okay, we're going to write about ours that we know, because between Kelly and I, we have almost 100 years experience in this field. And but what stood out was these are universal challenges for women in business, especially if that business is a male dominated field. So that was book number one. I released in a cohort of 12, there was 12 of us, authors, We Rise in Power. And this book is really around women of color and amplifying our voices for change. And the 12 authors, amazing women from all different backgrounds, African, Canadian, Asian, Indian, just very different people that were talking about their challenges in navigating as a non-white person in your domain, which puts a whole other level on, gender issues, is when you start layering other factors that, we can be marginalized for. And then we just recently, so that was March 2023. And then like literally 2 weeks ago, we launched Please Join, There's No Place Like Tech. And that came out of mothers, and I'm not joking, we had mothers reaching out to us when we published Please Stay, asking us if the book was suitable for their daughter.
Oh, okay.
And we said, no, it's not meant for a 10 or a 12 or a 15, 16-year-old. Our target audience was, 22 to 50 something. And to get them, they're already in the field. We need them to stay in the field, but we couldn't get that out of our head. And we often talk about in this field, the leaky pipeline, with the pipeline issues. Not only were women leaving, we don't have enough coming through programs. The numbers for tech, Lee, have not gone up since we started counting them for women in tech, which was like 1989. Okay, and they're dropping. So graduates are dropping. I think 1984 they were like 37% was women coming out of, these computer science and STEM programs. And when my daughter graduated, my youngest child, Jessica is 35. When she graduated, so she's been out of school since 22? She was 22 or something of that nature. It was 18, I think, percent. So it just goes to show you it's going in the wrong direction. So we interviewed 16 girls, 16 from 6 to 16.
6 to 16, okay.
16, and to share their journey in tech. Because most of our children, they've got a technology device in their hand at 2. They picked up your phone or your iPad, or tablet. They know how to do something. I don't even give my phone to my granddaughter. Okay, she locks me out of my own phone, and she's 3. So technology is very much part of their world. They're very comfortable with it, but they drop. They drop as they come through adolescence into those teenage years, and we cannot have them drop, because we need them as they're thinking about where they're going to go post-secondary. We need to think about tech as a career. So we have to hit this from all fronts. We have to hold the women that are there, because they're the role models. They're the ones that can help and guide and provide insights and perspectives. And we need to fill that pipeline.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So some of the barriers that women, and well, I guess let's just start with the young leaders coming in to wanting to be in this industry. We know that girls and teens, and then in their young adulthood, are very smart, university educated, accepted into universities, very motivated, great leaders. So, with all of these positive attributes, why are we still seeing such a number of girls and young women entering into these fields? Because they have the grades, they have the ambition.
Yeah, they have the
What's
smarts.
they have this, yeah, there are more young graduates from university that are female than male. So what's the disconnect? What's the barriers? I know you've mentioned a few, like STEM fields being unwelcoming to women, employment opportunities being lacking, wages and parity issues, leadership issues, perception within the workforce. Is this impacting our young talent, our young female talent?
Absolutely. All of those things and more. So here's where Kelly and I got really nervous when we were writing Please Join. So we agreed we are going to write Please Join. And we decided we needed to have young girls as the voices, meaning not our voices. We needed young girls speaking to other young girls.
Yes.
And in that work and that research, we came across a startling research note that said so this would have been last year, the end of last year, like September timeframe, that girls as young as 6 years old. Now, Lee, in Canada, that is grade one. That is grade one. Okay. As young as 6 years old, saying they're not good in math and science. I'm like, what? They know how to count. They've been counting since they were 2 or 3. So we know they can do mathematics. And as far as I know, they haven't taken a science course yet. They're going into grade one.
Yeah.
And that scared the bejesus out of us. That they were already minimalizing their brilliance at a young age. And that really made us stand up and pay attention and start looking at, okay, what is happening here? And we know that young girls are socialized very different from boys. We know this. I've got boys and girls. We understand this. And a lot of that is tied to the messaging they hear. We're still got this whole pretty perfection thing going on that they hear in their own house. Okay, in their own house. You take them, one of my favorite books, I'll make a plug for Reshma Shujani, who wrote Brave Not Perfect. She is the founder of Girls Who Code. Her book, Brave Not Perfect, boy, she just laid it out. And an example that she used was, you go to the playground at 6, 7, 8 years old. And we say, what do we say to our little girls? Oh, be careful, you might fall and hurt yourself. You're going to get dirty. Don't do. We say to the boys, go for it. I'm right here. I'll catch you. Climb those monkey bars. That is not what we say to our young girls. So it's small little things like that we don't even realize. You are setting them up to take themselves out and not step into that brilliance that they have. So that starts really. Then you've got, of course, all the societal expectations of girls and women, right? We're too strong, we get labeled. We get called all kinds of names. We're too bossy. I don't hear anybody saying to a young boy, you're too bossy, or calling him the names that we get called, or being told to quiet down, be quiet, you're too loud. We accept this in our boys. So we need to change that also. We're also we have different influences from family dynamics, what does a girl do or a woman do, the place in the home, cultural, religious, ethnicity, different kinds. I have had some young girls, 22, 23, said, what do I do, Debra? My family expects me to go and get married and to be a home and taking care of a family, etc. In my culture, that is what you do.
Yes.
And all I can say to these young girls is, you're going to have to decide whether or not you are prepared to sacrifice yourself and your own ambitions and your own aspirations to meet what your family's expectations are of you. That is a hard road.
Yes, I see that a lot. The expectation is to please your parents, right? They're paying for your education. They have influence over your decisions.
Yeah.
And so often girls and boys feel that a big part of their decision has to be around pleasing their parents.
Yes.
And sometimes to status, right? Like, oh, I have to do the thing that seems,
Family of doctors.
yeah,
Family of
family
lawyers.
of doctors. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Or following the footsteps
Yeah,
of the family, for sure.
yeah.
And what ends up happening is they eventually find their voice and realize that they have to do what's best for them because there's only one life we live and life is short. And so they end up transitioning into different careers after, maybe after their kids are a bit older. But, it'd be so nice to be able to see these individuals having the confidence that they should be pursuing what they're good at and what they are passionate about, beyond the parents, right?
And
Like
they're good.
parents not
They're
be
good.
questioning, yeah, like even choosing a high school. I remember talking to my son's grade 8 teacher and feeling really conflicted about different high school choices, and he's like, let them decide. Like, get out of their way, let them decide.
Yeah, we put our own expectations, and we all understand that.
Mhm.
As parents, we just, for those of us who have children and or have, we're godparents and all, we're aunties and uncles, we just want the best for them. We really do. But often that's a reflection of our lens as to what the
Mhm.
best is, of what the best
Mhm.
is, versus letting them follow whatever their dreams are.
Yeah.
So, we have that at the young age. And then as they go through school, and you're seeing the introduction to robotics classes or computer science classes, and these young girls are very interested, and they walk into the room and there's 50 boys and 5 girls, and they walk out. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to be in there with 50 13 or 14-year-old boys. Not happening. Now some of
Mhm.
these smart little gals have literally, I know one that I am aware of went home. She was 8 years old, and said to her dad, can you be our robotics coach, please? Because we want to have a girls' team. I'm like, brilliant, brilliant. And they won. They won.
Hey,
8 9 years
congratulations.
old. They just said, we don't want to do that with the boys. Okay, we want our own team. Super smart. But we have to keep them. We have to keep them and get them through that adolescent. I need to be, I want to be liked. I want to be popular. That mean girls thing that shows up from time to time when you're outside of the group, because women and young girls want to be connected. We want to be part of a community.
Mm.
If someone's not going to like us because we're too smart or, too bold, we're going to start to shrink ourselves.
We see
And
the same issues in sport.
correct. Correct. So you end up at the point now at 15 and 16 where they have to make choices for post-secondary, if that's what they choose to do, whether
Mhm.
it's college or university or polytechnical organization or school.
Mhm.
They That's why we can't lose them, because if
Mhm.
we lose them, then they will not consider tech as a career. Nobody says, Kelly and I talk about this. People talk about, even young, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, a veteran, we pilot, fireman, police person, we say all those things. Nobody says I want to be in tech. Nobody, not even the boys. Okay. So we have to highlight the value of this wonderful space, both from
Mhm.
an education point of view and an employment perspective, because look what is happening. We are not living without technology in our world. We need to be at the table as these solutions are being developed, because the bias that exists in all of us, we all have
Mhm.
bias, but if it gets built into the solution, we're in trouble.
Oof.
So if you
Yeah.
don't have, diverse representation at the table, this is going to be a problem.
Mhm. Mhm. And I also think that it's an issue as well for, the fact that we're not teaching enough about managing money and finances and, a lot of these things, in the primary school level. And then I think there becomes a fear around finance as well. So, like, I think we have an issue for girls and then women having the confidence to enter into finance careers.
Absolutely. I've said so many times, Lee, that why isn't there a life course? Like literally, and not even being funny,
No.
from this grade. all the way through. The only thing I ever saw was because when I was with HP and many other large companies participated in junior achievement. I don't even know if junior achievement is still around, but you went into the school at grade 8, grade 9, and you basically, it was like a life course in half a day. Here's what a mortgage is, here's what rent is, here's how you pay your bills, here's what happens if there's an unexpected pregnancy, here's
Mhm.
what goes on. Like I thought, well, why are we just doing this at grade 8 and grade 9? Because these are life skills, like you said, being able to manage your financials and to make decisions and understand credit and all of those kinds of things, much
Mhm.
younger. We
Mhm.
have the lovely interact and we go to the bank machine and like literally, we've heard kids say, can we just go to that machine and get money? Not connecting the dot that we had to put money in it.
Oh, yeah, and they don't even realize that these auto payments don't even require you now to go to a bank.
Yeah.
But I had to really kind of be concerned about the things my kids were signing up for, where they, like reoccurring video game subscriptions and whatnot, and their bank cards also work to almost like a credit card.
Oh, I know of people who've got the $9,000 credit card bill
Oh,
from their
yeah, yeah,
son signing up, playing some online game with
yeah.
no idea that ka-ching was happening in the background.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue as well for young people, is that they're having a hard time managing their expending because there are so many auto payments
Yeah,
that, I'm have that issue too, right? Like, I'm signed up for so many things, I can't even keep track of all of the
yeah.
reoccurring, payments that we have, and they're all little micro amounts, so
No,
they don't seem like a big deal, but yeah. So
yeah.
women and girls, they obviously struggle with self-confidence,
Mhm.
imposter syndrome. Is that impacting their choice to go into these industries?
It is, and it's funny because we talk about both of those topics in both Please Stay and Please Join. We
Mhm,
talk about this because of what we've all been talking about and how they're socialized. They're questioning themselves. They're doubting whether they have an ability. This whole imposter syndrome just drives me crazy.
mhm,
I had sons and a daughter, and even my son said, listen, we just work through that. It's not like, everybody has self-doubt, but this term is associated with women, that,
mhm,
it's associated with, and when I first heard it, I thought, what are they talking about? Like, true, everybody can have a crisis of confidence, and, you're walking
mhm.
onto a stage to present to 1,000 people. You've got to go and meet your boss's boss. So that's natural. You just get a little nervous, so to speak. But to start doubting your capabilities and the knowledge that you have because you're going to walk into that room, that's a whole different ballgame. That's a whole
Yes,
different.
that labeling, the labeling leads
Correct.
you to, yeah, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I'm nervous."
I'm
And
nervous.
you're like, that's normal. Everyone's nervous when they present,
I don't want to mess it up.
and also the ability to realize that you're going to feel uncomfortable when you're learning new skills. And
Correct.
it's okay. Everyone feels that way because in this day and age, we're all in a state of constant learning
Yes.
because, with ChatGPT and all these new tools, the advancements are like it's nearly impossible to stay caught up. So we're
You
all
can't know
feeling a
everything.
little bit uncomfortable with our knowledge,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean we're imposters. We've
No. And that's
chosen to given that label to ourselves.
and
We're
we've
just
we've
learning.
taken it. We've taken it. And I think we need to throw it back. And
I'm with you.
my sons have said we just have a little bit more bravado than you do. And here's the other reason why this is tied back to what we were saying about how girls are socialized. Boys will fall down and pick themselves, even if they tripped in front of a bunch of people, they'll get up laughing and oh well,
Yeah.
and they continue make a joke about it or something of that nature. Girls mortified, want to go and run and hide and, feeling shame and all kinds of craziness. You just tripped. It's not the end of the world. We're not teaching them the right skills. We need them to be able to discuss and debate something. They need
Mhm.
to be challenged. Let them be challenged, because it's the only way you're going to know whether your thoughts and your opinions, you got to be able to stand up for those things, not cycle back and
Mhm.
say, oh, someone didn't agree with me, I must be wrong. No, come back with whatever, be able to engage in a discussion where there are divergent opinions, so that
Mhm.
you can strengthen your own critical thinking skills.
Mhm.
And even, you might go into that discussion and someone is going to teach you something, because you're going to like, wow, I have not ever thought of it from that perspective. You just taught me something. We need to encourage that discourse so we can strengthen that muscle. We need
Mhm.
to be able to strengthen that muscle, not say something for fear that somebody will disagree. Bring it.
Yes.
Disagree, and then I'm going to find out how well I'm going to do in this scenario. Practice it. Practice it. If you go into a meeting and could be contentious, might be a few discussions, get a friend on the phone, call a friend and say, can you play devil's advocate here with me? Can you
Mhm.
take the opposite position? I want to ensure that I'm capable of being fluid in how I respond, because sometimes you just get nervous, right? And that's going to start shutting down, and you're not going to be able to sort of, come back. So practice. That's
Yes.
how you do it. And let somebody say to somebody, I want you to really challenge me on this, so I
Mhm.
can see, do I have enough certainty in my position? Not shy away from it. That's the courageous part, is, be courageous.
Yes, and I think most people know what their values are, at least once they get to be our age. I don't think I knew 100% what my values related to work were. When I never thought, I didn't even know what the word value meant for core values when I was growing up. That wasn't language that was discussed in the 70s and the 80s.
No, we didn't use it then. We use it
No,
now.
no, but now I think it's really important to know the company values and your values and how they line up. And so I recently, in the last couple of years, took a course on being able to speak your values, right? Most people figure out what their values are or what their values aren't, right? Maybe you discover that first. Once you know that, it's a matter of being able to stand up for yourself or find a win-win way to find common ground.
Yeah,
Um,
have
and
that
so
dialogue.
yeah, so that's being able to, it's one thing to know what you stand for. It's another thing to be able to communicate it in a way that brings everyone together and not further divide. And that is something that I feel has really helped me from a leadership standpoint is being able to find that common ground on values.
And to know what that actually means, to your point, Lee. So, I went through an exercise. I was interviewing Dr. Laura Eigel. She's written a book called Values First. And I was interviewing her as part of Gartner's Women in CIO program. She was one of our guest speakers. So I read the book. Thought, let me read
Mhm.
the book first. A little tiny book. I was shocked at what she taught me. And I'm going to tell you why. When we think of values, to what you've just said, we often think of respect, integrity, caring for people. These are the standard things that people think about. Living with integrity, being authentic. That just, everybody says, this is what I value.
Sure.
And she has an exercise, and it's free on her website. The Catch Group, I think, is the name of her company,
Okay.
where she has you really look at, what do you value. So I
Mm.
did the exercise because, I like commitment and loyalty. I know the things, the principles by which I live. But when I went through the exercise, what shocked me was achievement was one of my core values. That
Mm.
shocked me, because I would never have thought of achievement as a
As
value.
a value, sure.
Right. Yes. And in going through the work that she proposes, I realized, and we talked about it at the beginning of our conversation, when we were young, all we want to do is please our parents.
Mhm.
My parents valued education and achievement. As a second
Right.
generation Canadian, all I
Mhm.
heard was, go to school, study hard, do well, because you're going to have to be twice or three times as good as everybody else, simply because of this. simply
Mhm.
because of being a visible minority.
Mhm.
You need to assimilate, you need to fit in, and you need to achieve. They can't argue with achievement.
Mm.
I've never thought of it until literally, and I just interviewed this woman like, I don't know, 4 years ago.
Mhm.
It really took me back as I thought, wow, I didn't realize I valued achievement so much. And
Mhm.
that my career and my career journey had achievement all the way through it. The first this, the first that, the first that, blah, 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 blah. You want exceeds expectations. I didn't even connect that dot,
Mm.
how much that was, because it was all about pleasing my parents. Okay, which we kind of want to do to the day we die.
Yeah.
Which sounds terrible. So it's a very interesting exercise for people to really assess, what do you value, what kind of work environment brings out the best in you. What kind of leader do you work for? Who is standing beside you? Who's standing behind you? That's
Mhm.
you when you misstep. Who's standing behind you that's coming up, that's looking
Mhm.
to you as a role model? These are the kinds of things that your values showcase.
Mhm.
It's a very
Mhm.
exercise. And you're right, we didn't use this language, 20, 30 years ago, but we're using it now.
Mhm.
And the more young people can hone in on what they value, the easier it will be for them to navigate themselves to the best place where they
Mhm.
be their very best.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, for me, my core values center around relationships, and I think that that sense of wanting to belong. That I'm adopted, so like that's my identity. Is always yeah, it's always been a bit of a challenge for me. And growing up, I had learning disabilities, so I really struggled with my identity. So I find now I really identify with being a change maker because I think that those that have had struggles in their life often really want to make a difference in the world. They
Yeah,
want to help others that felt marginalized or um, felt that they weren't good enough, underestimated, all of those things. I really want to give those people an opportunity to show the world. And I love this concept, which is don't speak if you're nervous and you don't want to speak for yourself. Do it for the others that you're going to motivate and know that they're not alone. So do it for other people. It's the same thing with sales. It's like, oh, I don't want to sell to people, but it's like, well, think if you think that whatever you have to offer is going to help someone, then look at it that way,
yeah.
that
You
you
don't
have
hesitate
you
to
have
speak
to
up
talk
and
to
say no.
people in order to help them.
We don't hesitate to help somebody else.
Exactly, exactly. And if our services are going to help someone, then it's our duty to speak up and to share in a way that's going to support someone else's needs.
And to strengthen your voice. One of the
Yes.
things that we found as we were talking about confidence and all the things that were impacting women and young girls, you need to find the voice that's uniquely yours, and you need to strengthen it. You need to, and that requires courage, because
Absolutely.
it's only going to strengthen with use. You need to
Yes.
use it and
Yes.
speak up. It doesn't mean that you gotta rip somebody's face off or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. You need to be comfortable. I always look at it from, I'm going to use my voice. I'm never going to be silent. I'm certainly not going to be complicitly silent when
Mhm.
I see something. But I'm going
Mhm.
to try and handle things where everybody's dignity is intact.
Mhm.
There are ways in which you can do things. And people often say this to me, young girls and young women who are in the field, who feel like they're being minimized because this is a very male dominated career. It's 76% male. Um, yep. So it's only 24% female. You might see that number go as high as 28, even maybe 30, depending on how they count it. But that's small considering we're half the population. So we're half the
Yes.
population, and we're only 24% of this field. The minute you layer other elements, so gender, 24%, Black women, 3%. It drops dramatically. Asian or Latino women, 1%. Indigenous women, they don't even barely make the number, 0.0 something.
Wow.
So if you think about the challenges that we have, and there are many, we see it happening in these, what we call bro cultures in an organization.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking some of these younger companies that have young people who have founded them. This is not necessarily, where we're talking about 65, 70, 75-year-olds. No, young entrepreneurs who have built big companies and have been in the news with all kinds of challenges as to how women are treated, from talking over them, idea hijacking. There's all kinds of ways, inappropriate comments. Like, the fact that we still hear these things day in, day out just baffles me. But it still happens. And the reason why it still happens is because we're a reflection of society.
Mm-hmm.
It's like racism. People, I talk about this topic, as you know, all the time, Lee. And I say to people, it's never going away
Mm-hmm.
because we're a reflection of society. And as long as it exists in society, it's going to exist in an organization.
Absolutely.
The question is, how does it get handled?
Yes.
How does it get handled? And that starts at the top, as to sort of how women are treated. Do they understand the dynamics of gender? We know what they are. Women have to have 9 out of 10 in order to even apply for the job. Most of our fellows will say, I got 4, I'm good.
Yes.
I'm good.
We underestimate ourselves.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to be liked. Okay, everybody wants to be liked, but it's not the essence of your existence is to have, because people are just not going to like you.
Yeah.
We don't like everybody.
No.
So why would we? And I always say, you're just not somebody's cup of tea. Okay.
I always say no. Yeah, and I always say it's none of my business what people think of me. I really remind myself of that every day, because as an instructor, I get evaluated every single course that I teach, and it can be challenging, right? You want to win everybody over, but you're not, like you said, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and you do what you can to
Correct.
improve yourself for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Be a better communicator. What are the things that you want to continue to grow? I'm a lifelong learner, as are you. You mentioned the conference that we met at the conference that I ran, and we had the big book selling, we had all these books that we sold at the conference, and you won the award for the amount of books that you left with at that conference. I think you had 10 or 9 or something like that.
I needed help to carry them out.
Yeah, we couldn't even see your face behind all the books. And then, it was obviously foretelling, because now you're an author of, you have the stack of books that will almost cover your face.
Yeah,
So is it 4 now? 4 books?
The 4th is coming. You and I have talked about my wonderful co-author, Fawn Annan, who was the CEO of IT World Canada, who we lost a year ago. And Fawn and I unexpectedly lost. She's the only friend that I have that was referenced as an icon. I don't know anybody else that's got that label. It showed up in all of the, tributes to her. We were, so 3 books published, and Fawn and I were writing Get Smarter Faster, which was all about the rules that women need to know, no matter what business. And Fawn approached me and said, I want to do a project with you. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? She was, I have knowledge and you have knowledge, and we need to share it and help women navigate their careers and be successful. I want them to know what I knew at 40. I want them to know at 20. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. And so unfortunately, as you know, we lost Fawn, but I will publish Get Smarter Faster in the fall, hopefully on what would be her 70th birthday, which will be November the 9th. That's what I'm shooting for. She would have turned 70 on that day. But this is what we need to do.
That's
right?
a good day.
That's help women move forward. How do they accelerate? Because nobody's telling you the backdoor rules. We need to tell them.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. That's a great day for that book to come out. It's also my son's birthday, so
Oh, my daughter's on November 7th.
yes, he'll be 20 that day. So I think that that is a wonderful date to aim for, and I'm really looking forward to supporting you in
Thanks.
promoting that book because it sounds like it's going to be a very special one for you and for Fawn's legacy.
Her
So
legacy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I got a couple more questions for you. Of course, we always try to aim to do this in under an hour, power in under an hour, and I think that we're definitely doing that. So employment opportunities. I mean, I know some of the things that is still irking me is the fact that we aren't putting salary bands on our job postings, although that will soon in Ontario be a legal requirement. It already is on for crown corporations, but we know that this is keeping women from advancing as well as even potentially applying because who wants to spend all kinds of time applying for a job that you probably don't even think you're going to get and you have no clue what the playing field is going to be. When we don't disclose salaries, we put women, especially women of color, at a disadvantage. So, why are employment opportunities and the right inclusive hiring practices still an issue in this day and age?
Oh, such a big question, but it's an important one. I think
Mhm.
there's two things on, inclusivity and the right kind of practices. One, I think there's fear. I think there is fear. When anything is kept under wraps, there's a fear element there. You don't want somebody to know. Okay, and part of that is tied to equitable pay to
Mhm.
ensure there's just things in the world that if we don't force the hand, it's not going to happen. It's not
Mhm.
going to happen. And you also, a lot of people would deny this, just Deborah's opinion, would deny that what you're coming to the table with is a reflection of who you are and the biases that you have. So some of those biases that are still around from 40 years ago is that men deserve more money.
Mhm.
They're better decision makers, they're better this, they're better, like there's all kinds of
They have
crazy.
families to support.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same way that women should stay home and take care of the children. When
Mhm.
we know how many families, first of all, they need both incomes in the first place, and in many cases, the women of the family is running the higher salary. So I think this is very interesting where we're going with regards to equity, because
Mhm.
the numbers still are there. And unless somebody opens their books and we can see, if a man doing this job and a woman doing this job, are they paid the same? It gets a little tricky because someone's going to say, well, they've got 5 years more experience or something. Well, this is also tied to some of the practices. We have job descriptions that say 20 years experience.
Mhm.
First of all, a marginalized person, male or female, of color, of different descent, religion, ethnicity, they probably don't have 20 years experience because they weren't given the opportunity to get it. They might actually have the education because they could pay and go to school, but then to get a job, they're going to get filtered out.
Mhm.
So, the job might not need 20 years experience. The job might only need 10.
Mhm.
So we have to re-look and rethink of what are we asking for. We have to change the language because the language for women must be on call or 724 twice a month or something like that. A woman might take herself out and say, I can't do that no matter what, no matter when it is, when it's probably not even actually required. Just even
Mhm.
some of the wording of what they are, how they're framing up the job. We're seeing people anonymize the names, right? Because why? Because bias. Someone's
Mhm.
going to see a name that's not Sally or John and going to make a whole bunch of assumptions
Mhm.
when they see a different name. Maybe it's a name they can't even pronounce. Now
Mhm.
they made different assumptions. We need to have. I was working with a client that was interviewing for a new CIO, and they wanted our help. I'll put my Gartner hat on for a minute. They wanted our help in just making sure they were asking for the right qualifications, etc. And
Mhm.
I went through all that. That's fine because the role of this chief information officer is changing and evolving.
Mhm.
And I said, so what's the interview process going to look like? Oh, we're going to, selection, first level, second level, first pass, third pass, that kind of thing. I said, yes. And where's it going to culminate? With the panel. I said, what does the panel look like? And she
Mhm.
stopped. She said she was a senior executive. She goes, what do you mean? I said, what's the panel look like? And she was, oh, I have my CFO, I have this, and then she got it third in. She was like, oh, I see what you mean. There was, every single person was a Caucasian individual, and they had 3 men and 1 woman. And she goes, oh my God. She didn't even think of that. And she goes, oh, I need to go back. Because it's not like they didn't have, diverse representation within the organization. They had just fallen into the standard, let me bring these people to the table. And
Right.
so she changed the panel. She changed the
Yeah.
panel so that she had gender, she had ethnicity, she had color. This is not hard for us to do. I mean,
No.
we know how to do this, but you have to raise the awareness about doing it. So she changed it,
Yes. Yes.
and she ended up hiring a very diverse candidate, and it's working out quite well. But we have to raise people's awareness on that.
Yes. Yes. Because there's nothing worse than walking into an interview and you feel like no one is like you.
You're
Uh,
not getting the job.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
looking at them not getting the job.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we have an inclusive hiring practices training program through Women in Biz, and there's so many easy things that we can do to encourage more women to become employees of organizations that have a large male in IT. Interestingly enough, I was looking for a quote the other day for my class, and I was teaching information systems. I teach a business course, and it was interesting. I was looking for quotes, and I could not find one single female to quote. I ended up quoting Albert Einstein. It was a great quote. Albert Einstein's, famous scientist and whatnot. But yeah, I was just, so sad. And same with business. You go to find quotes on entrepreneurship or business. It's a lot of time, a lot of male quotes.
Yeah.
Uh, we see this in different, movies and pop culture representation. It's not equal. And it starts to send those subliminal messages to the young women that or teens or girls that they're not invited.
And that's why when we did Please Join,
Hmm.
we did very similar format to Please Stay. So we had, Please Stay, we had 21 women sharing their experience in, against the 10 chapters. We did the same with young girls. We talked about independence and courage, perseverance, confidence, competitiveness, talked about all of those things. But what we also said as was we want to profile, did you know, like, did you know that
Hmm.
this was invented by a woman? Did you know?
Yes.
And we took them through. We had a section on know her name because we're not hearing these women spoken of. We're hearing of
Yes.
all these tech titans. We know who they all are. We know who the words that come up all the time, and we
Mhm.
have such competent, brilliant women out there doing phenomenal things. We wouldn't even have some of the technology that we all use for every day, that the foundation of the Zooms and the technologies that we use for the internet, all of these things. That, did you know there was a female that was attached to that? No, because their name is never spoken. So that was part of what we wanted to do in the book for these young girls, and it was to highlight their stories. Highlight their stories. Go and find all these women, whether they're famous or whether, gosh, we've never heard of them before, but really? That's what they brought forward. That's what they invented. Oh my God, who knew? We're on a
Mhm.
mission to try and do that because we got to balance this thing out a little bit.
Oh my gosh, do we ever? Yeah, and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we had a serious setback.
Yes.
You know, what is it? 2022, I think we were 35 years behind where we were.
Yeah.
So we've set back women 35 years during the pandemic because it was women that were mainly in service jobs, helping professions. Some of the industries that uh, were most impacted by COVID lost their jobs, or they teachers, other people struggled to be able to manage their children and work at the same time.
Correct.
So we had a mass
Yeah.
exodus from the workforce, you know,
Very serious consequences.
the quiet resignation.
Mhm.
Um, and now I think we're still experiencing the quiet quitting, you know, um, because women and the workforce in general is the highest levels of stress
Yeah.
ever.
Me-
Um,
Mental
I
stress,
follow
challenges, terrible.
Yeah, I follow Google Trends, and the other day I read that we're at an all-time high, like a huge spike in the amount of people that are looking to leave work because of stress and burnout.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, I would imagine that that's a big issue in technology
Huge.
fields.
Because the productivity levels, when we don't do light switch moves in technology, we know this, but we did a light switch move on March 13th, 2020, when the world went home.
Mhm.
And within 48 to 72 hours, the world was up and running totally. I've been in more people's kitchens, bathroom, like people have 4 children at home, they're trying to homeschool them. Oh my God. And the productivity levels went through the roof. They skyrocketed. Organize it. First of all, people, especially in our geography, as we know, in the Greater Toronto area, where a 40-minute, 30-minute commute can now take you 2 hours to
Mhm.
get somewhere. So now you've got, that time back, and people didn't have to get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning to get a 6:30 train, to get somewhere. And the productivity levels skyrocketed. Organizations did phenomenally well. But that came at a price tag for people, because
Mhm.
instead of being on the train at 6:30, they were in front of this.
Yes.
Folks were doing emails, they were taking phone calls. Part of those boundary settings didn't happen, right? Where folks sort of like, I got to be able to close this virtual door, if anything. If you didn't, because not everybody has a private office in their house. People were in their children's bedrooms. I've met every family member and pet you can imagine. Um, but they didn't know how to turn it off because it became available all the time.
Mhm.
And the productivity level skyrocketed so high, it's very hard for organizations to dial that back now.
Yes.
Very, very hard for them to dial that back. And so I think we're in for a very interesting time as people return to their physical office. In some cases it's mandated.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not going over well with people, because the employee is feeling like, I delivered in spades to you, and you're going to force me to do that commute again and
Mhm.
come into, it's going to change a few dynamics, because what's at stake is not only the mental attitude of engagement and connection to your employer, it's also the discretionary effort. That's when 501, when you no longer need to be working and you're still working, or getting back online at 9 o'clock after you put the kids to bed, story time, bath time, and then you go back. People start to pull back from that. They
Yes.
pull back from it and say, yeah, I'm not doing it, because they look at it almost a little bit as disrespectful. And the organizations are not trying to be disrespectful. They're not. They're trying to regain their culture. They're just trying to deal with a couple of things when they've got empty offices.
Sure.
This is going to play out very interestingly over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I guess the other issue too is that young people, they probably some maybe want to have that opportunity to be in the office because it's more engaging for them, and so there are positives about
Lots
that
of
for
them.
sure. But, I think at least the last job that I had when I was a manager at an organization, they had a one day you had to go into the office one day a week. Like that was mandatory. And if you needed to go in more, then that's fine. But just that one day, kind of that consistent one day a week. And I'm like, that's doable.
Doable.
But it seems like a lot of the banks are moving towards wanting you in
3 days.
days a week. And now we're going on the side of more time driving, doing
Yeah.
that commute and less flexibility. So it seems, yeah, I think we're
And sitting in traffic for
trying to
2
figure it out.
hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Not everybody can take the train or transit. I used to plan for an hour and a half to go into Toronto. I now plan for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
The trip, and I've been late. Imagine.
Even at that, yeah, even with that, yeah, yeah. No, I know what you mean. I commute to York, and it's if I don't leave the house by 7:15,
Forget it.
it's really difficult to not be an hour on the road. So yeah, it's and then of course the highways are more and more highways are for construction. So we have the worst traffic in North America.
Yeah, it's pretty. I think do you remember when Boston went through the big dig for like 10
Mhm.
years or something like that? But they had, all new stuff. It wasn't like we're laying new asphalt, so to speak. I don't know what we're going to do here because this is untenable.
Yes,
You
it
can't
is.
have people leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning in order to get to work for 7:30 or 8 o'clock. Like you just can't have that.
Yeah, no,
You
can't.
know, I don't know what the answer is, but right now it's pretty between the construction and the repairs and closing roads down. Like
No.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue that employers are going to have to take on and try to do it in a way that it's a win-win, right? Like,
And go to the office and just get on a Teams meeting. Come on.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I know that always makes me laugh. Okay, so we always end our time together with our expert guests, and you've been a wonderful expert guest, by asking you to share five action steps that
Hmm.
you can take
Okay.
to reduce the barriers to entering into technology for women. So, how do we
Mm.
invite them to join and keep them? Uh,
Okay.
so, what are the five things that women can do?
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to use a quote that I raised my children on, which is no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Mm,
Give your consent. That is Eleanor Roosevelt.
mm,
I had that printed, okay? Because there's always going to be someone who's going to try and take you down. Do not give them permission. For I
mhm,
don't care whether you're 6 years old or 60. Do not give them permission. You've got to know your own self-worth and the value that you bring. And that's hard for girls and women. There's a little bit of fragility there. So that would be the first is, to anchor yourself in what you do and who you are, to go and pursue whatever you want to pursue. And you will find your own posse because you need to go and build coalitions. You need to build partnerships and coalitions that will support you. That includes mentors, sponsors, allies. We can't do it by ourselves. So you've got to surround yourself with people who can help you.
mhm,
Ask for help. Everybody always wants to help somebody. It's part of our genetic DNA as a human being is to show our humanity and to help somebody.
mhm,
So ask for help and pay it forward. Pay it forward and help somebody else. And when you fall down, get back up. If you need somebody to call a friend, you need that card in your back pocket, make sure you have that. You don't have to do it alone. But prepare yourself, build some resiliency so that you can navigate the challenges that you'll face. But do not quit, do not leave, do not stop because somebody else is pushing you to do that. You got to stand tall and stand strong because you are unstoppable when
mhm.
you do.
Love that. Mm. Those are some great tips. And what tips would you give employers? Because obviously we need to encourage more employers to reduce the barriers to entry and to help female talent to stay. So what can they do
Well,
on the
first is to be honest and assess where you are, right? You need to assess where you are. Know what is it that you have to fix. And if you are trying to attract and retain and recruit diverse backgrounds, whether it's gender, ethnicity, sexual identity, etc., be honest about that. Be honest that that's what we actually are trying to do, and
Mhm.
to put both the programmatic efforts, because we know they're required, but
Mhm.
also recognize that if every single person did one thing once a week, once a quarter, once a month, you will
Mhm.
change the trajectory of this really, really quickly. So you want to create an environment where people know that they individually have a responsibility. It's not just at the programmatic level. If you want more women, then get the women in your organization to bring them in. But you better create an environment where they can thrive there. Don't have them coming into a toxic environment. Everybody can actually do their part. If you have situations that show up, because they will show up, and remember, microcosm of society, they are going to show up. Address them. Don't be skirting them under the rug. Address them, and people will see, because that's your culture. Okay,
Mhm.
think about it from this way: thoughts and values become behaviors. Behaviors are things that I can see, and behaviors I can address. So if you say you stand for these things, my question to you is, where's the proof of that? How
Mm.
will I know? What's the evidence that you are an environment that stands for these values? It's in behaviors. You have the culture and the environment that you promote and that you accept.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Oh, that is so good. Well, thank you so much for an incredible, empowering hour. And I'm really excited to continue to support all of the work that you're doing through your advocacy. And I look forward to having you hopefully on again. Thank you so
Thank
much. It's been
Thank
wonderful.
you. As always, thank you for the incredible support you've provided it from day one.
Well,
And I
always a
absolutely,
pleasure.
all right, we'll see you soon.
Always a pleasure.
Okay,
Okay. Thanks
all
so
right,
much.
bye now.
Bye.